After having some look back the experiences of German cases, let us go to our Korean cases. The following text, which has been appeared in my book, has been mentioned also to the students from Harvard University when they have visited to our EGOC campus. And last summer, I said the same thing to the Harvard students on our fate. So I will read very quickly a focus of tension and conflict. Even today, it is the case. Throughout their long history, the Korean people have been blessed with the cultural, linguistic, and ethnic unity, and a beautiful land, rich in resources, and productive agricultural areas, which for the millennia have been sufficient to support this population. The land is small, roughly with the size of the state of Minnesota. An estimated 73 million people live there, 1/3 in north and 2/3 in south of demarcation line. Korea, our country, has never posed a threat to its powerful neighbors, China, Russia, or Japan. But it's a key strategic position, bringing Asia and the Pacific, made these of the aggressive powers anxious to dominate the peninsula. Japan's main island are located a scant 120 miles to the southeast. About the same distance to the west lies China's Shandong Peninsula. Korea shares its northern border for about 150 miles with China and for 11 miles in the northeast with Russia. 75 miles further north is Vladivostok, one of Russia's principal naval base and a vital outlet to Pacific. Korea has for ages been a focus of contention among the Northeast Asian powers, eager to show up their strategic defense or to have a base from which to launch attacks against others. It is therefore not surprising that when the United States pursued its quote and unquote manifest destiny into Asia and the Pacific in the late 19th century. It also viewed Korea as a pawn to be conquered, controlled, and neutralized, or traded in order to attain or preserve control of other territories. It is very important. In the 1905 Taft-Katsura Agreement, for example, the United States accepted Japan's ambitions regarding to Korea on condition that the United States would have a free hand in the Philippines. For centuries, Korea has been a barometer of political climate of the region. Since 1945, it has become an indicator of the state of peace and security in the world. It was over control of this land that the Cold War produced its first hot regional war, we say Korean War, which claimed about more than 4 million casualties. Since then, the Korean conflict has time and again reverberated beyond borders of a peninsula and region. Conflict and division. Such a conflict is not new for Koreans. Throughout the 3,000 years of recorded history in Korea, this land has been trampled by armies pursuing conquest, subjugated by foreign powers, forced in undesired alliance, occupied and humiliated. Despite this, for 13 centuries before 1945, neither the land nor the people of Korea were ever divided. Therein lies both a tragedy of division and the hope that it can be overcome. People so bound together over millennia do not easily forget their common ancestry. History, tradition, language, and culture, nor readily accept the division of their nation and land. That I have written in my book. The situation has been changed, of course, but the people remains the same. I disagree what the North Korean power blocks are doing now. But under that totalitarian regime, the people are suffered. We shouldn't forget the suffering of people. Let us come to the human rights situation of North Korea. No progress is evident in the area of human rights. At the same time, concerns of the international community is mounting. I share fully with these concerns. For example, in North Korea, no free movement is allowed. Born place is almost permanent. Once he's born there, it is lifelong. He should stay there. Unless their son or daughter passed the examination of 5 top universities, graduated, secured a job in Pyongyang, etc. Then they have a right to move to Pyongyang. Otherwise, none. No free conversation on any subject with the foreigners is allowed, except on weather, number of family, health, or greetings. We know arrested defector returned, severe tortured. This year, again, more than 100 megaton of food are in short. People are hungry, etc., etc. That is a human tragedy. But how we can tackle the peaceful reunification or promotion of human rights situation in DPRK and the third parties? Here, issue is very clear. Issue is how we can promote human rights situation of DPRK. We all together, truly, constructively, and peacefully, and non-politicized way. I have said always, human rights are not tool of a political instrument in order to push the concerned to the corner. And also, human rights situation should be improved by themselves, through the bottom-up approach. Therefore, the third parties can only facilitate atmosphere and occasions peacefully so that respective nation can willing to engage themselves to improve their own human rights situation. North Korean case is far to come to this stage, I know. But this is the principle whenever we are talking about human rights. This process requires long process. Therefore, advocacy, education, and conscientization to common people is absolutely necessary. United Nations made no definition on human rights because they have said the potentiality of human rights differs or develops according to the quality of life and the quantity or scope of life of a human being as time goes. But they made three characteristics. We say three principles. Human rights are inalienable. Human rights are inherent. Human rights are universal. That is three principles. Therefore, for our own conceptual framework, I said to my student, mature and a balanced leader should have this kind of conceptual framework. First, to avoid the traps of reductionism and syncretism. To avoid the, and kind of do not engage themselves because of reductionism and syncretism. We should engage, therefore, in order to avoid this reductionism and syncretism, we should engage multidimensional and multisectoral and multi-actors approach. That I say comprehensive approach. In dealing with North and South Korea in a reconciled stage, both sides should reduce their greedy thinking, half. North, at the same time, their greedy thinking should reduce half. So, half and half are coming together symbolically, then make a one. Then reconciliation is implemented. But if they insist their own, the other side is also the same, then 1 + 1 will be mathematically 2. It never comes reconciliation. Toward the peaceful reunification with the reconciliation, therefore, it is very much important. Very much important. I disagree with the North Korean regimes. At the same time, because my unhappiness and my disagreement, I am not making a mistake to ignore that innocent people, those who are born in North Korea, waiting for some time reunification where they can maximize their freedom. I say this. I came back from in Switzerland since 10 years. My observation, and then after 20 years long in Geneva experiences, I have returned 2,000. Now I am counting 10 years after my return. I have observed our nation is divided, the North and South. At the same time, in South, we are divided. People are divided into two. There's no any communication at all. If you come to many countries, so-called developed countries in the Western world, always there are two different groups are together, as conservative groups as well as progressive groups. These conservative and progressive are both absolutely necessary for the nation building. You know, for instance, I am more than 70 years now. When I was young, I was engaged for myself and during a student April Revolution. That time, I was very progressive. Now, I am beyond of 70 years old. All of a sudden, I became a very conservative. Human being is always like that. You know, the nation or whole society is always same. They are very naturally conservative and progressive, should be together. But in Korea, people are divided into conservative and progressive. There's no communication. Therefore, I propose to my students, you stand in between conservative and progressive. Make a bridge, communicate to others. Once it is done, do not stay there to make a take off together like an airplane, two wings, and like a bird, two wings to the sky. Therefore, I say that is beyond. Between and beyond. Bridge role between conservative and progressive. Then take off to the third dimension, like an airplane or like a bird with the two wings. The final reflection should be toward the community building for peace in Northeast Asia. As an again frame of reference, I took European Union's experiences. Of course, we cannot import directly altogether to our region, but some lessons are absolutely necessary when we are talking community building for peace in Northeast Asia. When the European, they have started their reunion in 1957, their slogan has been, "We Europeans united for better." It was up to now, that is overarching concerns of all Europeans. The origin of EU is 9th May 1950. And then that time from Robert Schuman. He was Minister of Foreign Affairs of France. Then he has proposed reconciliation between Germany and France. It is absolutely necessary for the cooperation, for the betterment of Europe. To do this, he has proposed common ownership to the coal and steel of two nations by any European countries for future. His dream, 1950, became in reality 1957, so-called Roman Treaty by 6 states, Germany, France, Italy, Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. They signed for this Roman Treaty, and they have started long march to the European Union. Now, 27 European states became EU members. Any nation in Europe, they agree on democracy and a market-oriented system, they have a right to get in. That lesson to Northeast Asia for the community building for peace in the future to my student is very much important. Of course, if we are coming Northeast Asia, the political system is different. Therefore, I suggest start with the easiest, not start from a difficult one, very easiest one, such as disaster preparedness. We are suffering now very often yellow dust from China and Mongolia, yellow dust comes. So how can we protect as a disaster preparedness this yellow dust or bird flu, tsunami, all these, emergency preparedness could be discussed. Or common ownership to the Japanese Constitution Article 9 can be started by my student. You can meet with the students of Japan and students in Peking, students of, in Taiwan, all together. Our young generation should get together to think the Japanese Constitution Article 9 should be commonly owned, because that Article 9 has a result of World War II. And then if we are coming to the Northeast Asia region, there are 6 countries, China, North, South Korea, and Japan, Taiwan, and Mongolia. If you analyze, and these 3 nations, there are 3 states are sending migrant workers to other 3 nations. Japan, Korea, Taiwan, South Korea, Taiwan, we are receiving migrant workers from China, North Korea, and Mongolia. Therefore, the time has come for you students to think kind of a common strategy to the migrant workers policy in the future. That could be a starting point toward peace community building in Northeast Asia. In my center for my students, I have identified whenever you are talking, Northeast Asia peace community, there is areas of further research by my student are identified here. Territorial dispute, differences, interpretation, understanding of mutual history, arms race, and then bilateral relationships, and the national division, North and South Korea, and then divergence in the political ideology, weapons of mass destruction, vulnerable environment, and physical security, and the democracy safe from authoritarian. Those areas for your further reflection, for your further subject of your research in the future. In South Korea, especially, an academic field reflecting a common hope of the humankind, and active interdisciplinary research is absolutely necessary. Contribution to establishing a peace community between the Korean Peninsula and Northeast Asia as an overall concern I have re-emphasized again here. Let me conclude my special lecture with my the Laureate Response. And I was very much honored in 2007, and when I was invited by the University of Edinburgh, where every 2 years they are selecting one foreign scholar to give an honorary doctor degree. And in 2007, and very happily, I was chosen, and an honorary doctor degree of divinity at the Edinburgh University. And then I have made Laureate Response, and during that ceremony, around 6,000 students are gathered, and 700 professors are there. I said at that time, today is the day which brings honor to the whole people and countries of Korea, a country which has been divided into North and South for the 62 years. Now we are 65 years, but at that time is 62 years. Our people are divided into 2 groups. One, advocating the premise, quote, war is the means to real peace, and the other, that quote and unquote, war can never bring the real peace. Yet when we confront today's world reality, we cannot but recognize the limits of trying to attain genuine peace by the use of force. A war waged in order to bring an end to another war can never by any means ensure a peaceful outcome. This is why we realize that the true and the lasting peace is achieved only through communication. That is, a peaceful means which is founded on mutual compromise through reconciliation. This is we learn from modern human history, especially from the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the Iraqi War, from other wars which all reconfirm the same lesson. Following through the dispute between those who state that it is through the war that peace is attained, and the other who says that genuine peace is achieved only by peaceful means, we reconfirm the only possible conclusion, which is that true peace can be achieved only by peaceful means. To this end, we are called by Jesus Christ to be peacemakers and peace advocates. I am proud and happy to bring this honorary degree back to my country, Korea, and to continue with our long and patient struggle to achieve a lasting peace settlement on Korean Peninsula. I have delivered this Laureate Response that time, which has been televised by the BBC. And today I will conclude my special lecture. Thank you very much indeed for your attention.